If the Dallas Stars key players are healthy, them and the Minnesota Wild should have the best playoff series of the first round. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this first preview of the 2026 Stanley Cup playoffs. This is the Minnesota Wild Dallas Stars edition. I am your host, Nick Zarar, so I want to thank everyone that is taking time out of their busy playoff weekend to watch, listen, wherever you get your show, wherever you get your podcast to today's show. We are going to do one of these for all 8 of the first round playoff series over the course of the next 3.5-4 days. There'll be 10 to 15 minutes. The key points, what you need to know going into each series, the key players, the trends, the storylines, the X factors. I'll walk you through my gym class theory. One of the factors I use to pick who wins in these playoff series. And getting out of the gate, for the Stars and the Wild, this is undoubtedly a rough first round matchup. You look at the way the bracket has fallen in some components where if you're in that Pacific division, things are a lot easier for you than the central part of the division. Of course, like most things in sports, that operates in cycles. Sometimes the Pacific division is going to be better than the Central, the Atlantic better than the Metro, and some years you as a good team are going to get the short end of the stick. We have seen Dallas and Colorado at more than one occasion over the last handful of seasons end up with really difficult paths out of that Central division, where by the time Dallas has gotten to the Western Conference Finals each of the last 2 years, the Oilers, who on paper are not as deep of a team, were able to exploit those weaknesses. So starting out, the key storylines for each team. Number one, for the Dallas Stars, are your key contributors healthy enough? Over the course of the last month or so, this is a team that has dealt with a litany of injuries. Key players like Roope Hintz haven't played enough games. Hintz only 53 of 81 regular season games. He is doubtful to play game number 1. We'll see whether or not he can go. The fewest games that Hintz has ever played in his career. And I'm getting older because I still think about Hintz being a young emerging talent, and he's like 28, 29 years old. So Hintz's health is key. He is one of the Dallas transition stars. And when Dallas, and at large, Dallas has really evolved how they play, what their preferred style is. And I love how you can see the product of their struggles in the postseason manifest in the decisions they've made, the types of players they've prioritized, the style of play the team emphasizes, the coach they went out and hired, those are all reactions to some of the mistakes. Now, I do think they are probably one right-handed defenseman short. I am not the biggest fan of guys like Ilya Lyubushkin who are more or less out there to eat shots and throw hits because they're going to struggle in transition against more skilled teams. The other key injury for the Stars is Miro Heiskanen. In this era we play in now where Adam Fox and Quinn Hughes, Charlie McAvoy, Evan Bouchard, Cale Makar, Rasmus Dahlin, there are so many elite defensemen in our game today. It's going to be a challenge for someone like a Heiskinen to ever really get Norris Trophy consideration. I didn't even mention Zach Werenski or Mo Seider, 2 guys this year who had strong arguments as well. You have that next burgeoning wave on the horizon as well, Matthew Schaefer, Lane Hudson, to consider in that conversation about where the position is going. So someone like Heiskanen, who is really well-rounded, is good both offensively and defensively. A true minutes eater. This is somebody who over the course of his tenure in Dallas has easily pushed the 25, 26 minute mark when it gets to the postseason. There will be games should the Stars go on a sustained run and he gets back into the lineup where he'll push 30 minutes in a game that ends in regulation because of how valuable he is. He's able to play on both special teams units. And Heiskanen has been injured a lot in his career. He's still not that old, which is crazy for somebody who feels like he's been in the league a long time, but he got injured on April 9th. He's questionable for game number 1. He's played the 16th most minutes of any defenseman in the entire NHL over the last 5 years. This is somebody who at times has played on his offside to accommodate playing with Esa Lindell, who's left-handed. And we'll talk about Lindell a little bit more later. Lindell is somebody whose game I am very high on, and I think his defense gets a little bit underrated based on where we are as a league. And for Minnesota, it's very straightforward. Can you win your first playoff series in more than a decade? The Minnesota Wild have not won a playoff series since 2014, 2015. They have tried a lot of different things. They've gone through quite a few coaches during that window of time. Bruce Boudreau, Dean Evison. They're on to John Hines now. John Hines, of course, has that USA Hockey connection to Bill Guerin. Bill Guerin, the Wild GM, was the GM for USA Hockey. There's a lot of shared DNA there. There's been a concerted effort for the Wild to get a little bit more skilled. Quinn Hughes trade back in December, a massive haul. 3 former first-round picks traded to the Canucks for Hughes, in addition to some draft picks. Hughes has been pretty good since getting to Minnesota. His goals against is not great. That is something I would point out. Him and Faber make a really nice first pair. I think on paper, that's probably a smidge better than what Dallas can throw out there. But if you're Minnesota, Bill Guerin's had that job since 2019. You've been to the playoffs quite a few times in that window of time. You've paid Kaprizov. You have made Kirill Kaprizov the highest paid player in the entire NHL. You traded for Quinn Hughes. You have to figure out this summer coming up if you can sign him to a long-term extension or if he'd like to test the market. And you're Bill Guerin, you're going to need to find a way to continue to matriculate those assets where you're going to have to trade Hughes. Matt Boldy had the year of his life this year. He scored the key goal in regulation in the gold medal of the Olympic game, set a career high in points, and looks like somebody who is right on the cusp of becoming a superstar within our game. You still have Jonas Brodin and Jared Spurgeon kicking. Their goaltending tandem might be the best in the postseason between Gustafsson and Jesper Wallstedt. I think that for Minnesota, it's really simple. Sure, they've had some rough go of it. They've had to play Dallas a lot in the early rounds. They've had to play Colorado. The Central Division is tough. Minnesota is probably one top 6 player short. That has been the knock against them for a long time now. They've never really had that traditional number 1 superstar center. Joel Eriksson-Ek is a very good complementary piece. I would not underwrite him by any estimation, but the Wild not going out there and trying to get Vincent Trocheck or Robert Thomas or another fringe top 6 center to augment a team that is really good on the wing. That's what's unique about this series when you look at these two teams. And we'll talk about Wyatt Johnston of the Stars, who's probably the best center either team has in this series. But both of these teams are a lot stronger on the wing than they are down the middle. For Dallas, you think about Mikko Rantanen and Jason Robertson. For Minnesota, you think about Matt Boldy and Kirill Kaprizov, who had a really good year. Kaprizov and Robertson are a lot closer than you think in terms of production and their underlying numbers. But Kaprizov, by virtue of being a bit more dynamic, being a better skater, probably flashes, pops a little bit more when you watch him. But for me, I need to see the Wild break through. They've lost to Vegas a couple times in the early rounds. They've lost to St. Louis a couple times. And they have enough talent where they should be able to go on some type of run. Now, Dallas is probably the second most talented team in the West behind Colorado. We need to see how the injuries shake out. Transitioning now to the key stats. The Stars this year changed a bit of how they play. They have become a bit more of a quality offense prioritization team. And what I mean by that, there are 2 schools of thought in hockey right now. You can be a quantity team or you can be a quality team. The quantity teams, and the Florida Panthers are a quantity team. They won the Stanley Cup 2 years in a row with a shooting percentage at even strength of less than 8% because they throw so many pucks at the net. They are able to sustain offensive zone time, wear you down, and they have the high-end shooting talent. You have guys like Carter Verhaeghe who go on 15% shooting benders. Sam Reinhart, 50 goals a couple of years ago. You drop in a Barkov, you drop in a Kachuk, really high-end guys, and then the supplementary pieces are all in that concerted effort to maintain offensive zone time, wear down defenses. Dallas has really gotten away from that. Dallas has always been an analytical darling for much of the last half decade. It's why they've been a very popular team amongst the analytics community for picking Stanley Cup contenders. They play a good transition game. You have multiple high-end mobile defensemen in Heiskinen, in Harley, who are capable of getting the puck up ice quickly. You have guys like Roope Hintz, like Jason Robertson, and to some extent even Matt Duchene, who even at his age is still a pretty good transition player. That's been the key. But Dallas now, only 9th in goals for, 2nd in goals against, which is important. 2nd best power play in the league. They stole the Oilers' old power play coach and rode that to a top 5 power play for the first time in a while. 12th penalty kill. So right on the cusp of where you would like to see it, generally speaking. If we're trying to evaluate the seriousness of a Stanley Cup contender, you want both your special teams units to be top 12 or better. Penalty kill and power play. That goes a long way. fifth in save percentage. Jake Ottinger, decent year, didn't elevate maybe the way some of us expected he would. He's got one of the great playoff series of all time in a loss to Calgary a number of years ago, where he was arguably the best goalie in those playoffs, and he only played 7 games in that first round. The underlying numbers are a little more interesting. 26th in shot attempts, 30th in scoring chance attempts, 22nd in expected goals. All of that tells me this is a team that doesn't play at a very high rate. All of this is telling me this is a team that is very choosy. And then on top of that, they have high-end finishing talent, because you don't end up being 9th in the league in goals while having those kind of underlying metrics without having elite finishing talent. And Wyatt Johnston is a great shooter. Jason Robertson, 40-goal mark, again, for the second time in his career. When Mikko Rantanen has been healthy, and Rantanen did miss quite a few games coming out of the Olympic break after representing Finland, we have seen Rantanen single-handedly win games. The third period of that Game 7 against Colorado last year is one of the great individual performances in the history of the Stanley Cup playoffs. When Rantanen is dialed in, and he's not the most elite of skater. He's big, so he's able to bowl his way to more dangerous areas of the ice. But it's not in the same vein of what we see Connor McDavid do, where he will just put his head down, chop his hands, and angle his feet awkwardly and put defenders kind of on a spin cycle. For Rantanen, it is largely getting to the dangerous areas of the ice and ripping home hard shots. I really am optimistic for Dallas's chances because of this concerted effort to shift towards a quality-based offense as opposed to a quantity offense. On the Minnesota side of things, Minnesota historically, for much of the last 15 years, has been a team predicated on defense and goaltending. They have had a litany of quality goaltenders rotate through that organization. They've had a number of great defensemen. Brodin and Spurgeon still kicking at a pretty high level, pretty good as far as second pair defenders go. And then you add that in augmentation of Faber and Quinn Hughes, and you have a really nice top 4. You have the best goalie tandem in the playoffs, and you start to get an understanding of how Minnesota's path works out here. They're going to have to win on defense. They're going to have to win on situational goaltending, and they're going to need their Kaprizovs, their Boldies, their Quinn Hughes to make the difference-making plays. Underlying numbers-wise, 2.5 goals for per game. That's less than what Dallas does. 6th in shot attempts per game, 12th in scoring chances per game, 12th in expected goals per game. So Minnesota plays with a bit more tempo, is able to create a bit more dangerous offense, and I would like to see them find a way to break through. And I think that's really the key in understanding this series. Dallas has been here for a while now. They've made the last 2 Western Conference finals. They made the Stanley Cup final back in 2020 where they lost to Tampa Bay in 6. They've been lingering around the periphery for quite a while. The question ultimately becomes, will you be able to break through ultimately a la the way Tampa Bay did or the way Vegas did? Or are you going to go the way of the Sharks or the Rangers, where that sustained greatness, that sustained presence in second and third rounds of playoffs only gets you 1 cup final appearance? Slowly but surely, your key players age out and you aren't able to reinforce them because you're perpetually trading away. And look, Dallas has as good of an AHL operation in the league. The Texas Stars consistently graduate pieces from their AHL project to the NHL level, and they come up and they are impactful. Think about the package of Logan Stankoven and those picks to get Mikko Rantanen. Stankoven was more of a projection. He hadn't done a lot. He hadn't been in the NHL that long, but you look at the way Wyatt Johnston has developed and evolved. You look at the way Roope Hintz has developed and evolved. Miro Heiskanen. I would throw Nils Lundqvist in there. We'll see. This is the Ranger fan in me. I am not giving up on Nils Lundqvist yet. I know he's had a winding road to become a consistent NHLer, but I think his skill set is conducive to where the game is going, and it's simply a matter of him staying healthy and continuing to forge a path forward. Continuing on, X factors in this series. For Dallas, Thomas Harley. When Thomas Harley is healthy and playing at his best, he is a top 10 defenseman in the world. Coming out of last year's playoffs, and I did my offseason positional rankings, I had Thomas Harley, I think, as the 9th best defenseman in the world. His underlying metrics last year were outstanding. He was 100th percentile in goals above replacement amongst all defensemen in the league, as good as it gets at the position. This year, it hasn't been as smooth. It hasn't been as clean. I think some of that is environmental. Dallas has been a little leakier defensively. They have not been as good offensively. So naturally, that's going to take a bit of a hit. But we saw Harley do a really nice job at the Olympics, where he was probably Canada's second best defenseman behind Cale Makar. In that environment where everybody could skate and everybody had a lot of skill, Harley was one of the few standouts on that Canadian blue line who was able to move the puck and withstand the high skill set that was required to play in that environment. We've seen him be a pretty good defenseman. He had the one overtime game winner in last year's playoffs that still lingers in my mind. For Minnesota, for me, it's Matt Boldy. Kirill Kaprizov has consistently been a high-end player. Last year, he had 9 points in 6 games in the playoffs. I want to see Matt Boldy rise to this moment. We saw him score that crucial goal to force the gold medal game, to get it to overtime, I should say. I know that goal was first. Canada scored to force overtime, but he scored the one American goal in regulation. His skating has really taken leaps over the last 2 years, and something about Boldy that he doesn't get enough credit for, he's a pretty good defender as well for somebody who was close to 90 points this year in the regular season. The Wild outscored opponents this year 55-36 with Matt Boldy on the ice. Without Matt Boldy on the ice, significantly worse. Without Matt Boldy on the ice, the Wild go down to being a 45% goal share team. Of course, great players elevate, and they're supposed to be your great players. That's what makes them great. But Matt Boldy gives the Wild a bit of a dimension they haven't had in years past. I know the Nick Foligno and Michael McCarron trades got a lot of buzz at the trade deadline for what those guys bring intangibles-wise, experience-wise. The Wild are probably one high-end guy short up front. We'll see if Hintz plays, but it's going to be close. So in my estimation, when I'm gaming out my gym class theory, it's usually better the deeper you go in the playoffs, because that's where your high-end talent really has to make differences. But to start out, I think Kaprizov is the best individual talent in this series. I think he would be the first pick. I think Quinn Hughes would be the second pick, so you're at 2 Wild. The third pick, I think, would be Jason Robertson, who has had probably the best season of any non-Kaprizov forward in this series. Next up, I would have Matt Boldy, who at 85 points in the regular season was one of the best players in the world this year. So far, through 4 picks, 3 Wild, 1 star. Next up, I think Brock Faber goes before Mikko Rantanen. Now, I personally would probably take Rantanen because of the big game experience, and he's so big and so physical, and I think in gym class ball hockey, Rantanen would probably have a strong argument to be the first pick because of that. But I think Faber, then Rantanen. Then I think Wyatt Johnston, and if Heiskinen is healthy, Heiskinen. I think Joel Eriksson Ek and Matt Duchene are about even. I would lean Ek over Duchene. But through those first 5 picks for both teams, for our hypothetical gym class, I think these teams are very even at the high ends of their roster, which is why ultimately I think the Stars' depth, i.e. why I pointed out Thomas Harley in their X Factor category, I think that's the way they break through for the Stars to win this series. They win on depth. They win on the margins. They win with guys like Sam Steele, like Oscar Beck, like Colin Blackwell, should Blackwell play if he's in the lineup consistently. The pick, I'm assuming Miro Heiskanen is going to play at least 6 of the 7 games in this series. I think Hintz plays at least 4 of the 7 games. I am picking the Dallas Stars to win in the first round in 7 games. I think Mikko Rantanen's consistent playoff excellence is the deciding factor ultimately. I think the Stars having the elite power play, they do, the second best in the league. I think that's one of the keys. And then Dallas has a real now or never situation. This is a team that is leveraged for this exact moment, that is paying a lot of guys a lot of money. They need to figure out Jason Robertson's money this summer. If the Stars break through, they go all the way, they win the whole thing. It takes a lot of heat off of them. Minnesota, same deal. I don't think Bill Guerin gets fired if they lose in the first round, but it's not out of the question. There is a world where the Wild lose this series, and that's what closes the door on the Bill Guerin era in Minnesota. That will do it for the Stars Wild preview. Be sure to subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts, whether you're on YouTube watching, if you're over on any of the audio platforms, subscribe there. We're on TikTok. We're on Instagram. The Discord server is getting there. It still has levels I need to set, things at channels I need to set up, but I will be back later in the day whenever you watch this. I still have to go record a couple more of these, but they will trickle out over the course of the next few days. I will talk to you guys then. Until then, enjoy the Stanley Cup playoffs.